I think it might be a good time to get started. Um, and people may continue to join us. So I'm going to get into the intros and I'm going to let everybody know that we generally run to about 9:30 and want to be respectful of people's time. We're not going to go over. So our panel guests and everybody that is tuning in can get back to whatever they need to with their family, but I will stay on a little bit longer. Sometimes some people want to talk through a few more questions, so I'll be here, but there's no obligation for anybody to stay any longer than that if you don't want to. So very, very excited about tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is let's talk about divorce. And Phyllis says Central or Eastern time. Great question. We have a lot of Floridians here, so that is Eastern time, 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. Great question. And a lot of people from Texas and Central time, that's going to be 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Got to do my math. So our topic is divorce. And I don't know if anybody has heard the latest statistics. It used to be the divorce rate in the church is the same as the world. About 50% of marriages end in divorce. Recently, the new polls have come out. 60% of marriages, 60%.
You froze up.
So that's 60% of marriages.
You froze up right after you started before you started giving the statistics, the new statistics.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, tech doesn't always work the way I like it. 60% of marriages in the church are now ending in divorce. That is a 20% increase over the last statistics. So it's not getting better. And there's a lot more hurting people out there. So I am very excited for our panel speakers because this topic is so important. You guys are so needed. And I am so blessed that you chose to come on and share your experiences. So I would love to share a few things about each of our panelists. And other than our panel speakers, everybody else can go ahead and mute themselves. We'll have some Q&A at the end. Panel speakers, don't mute yourselves, but everybody else can mute. So here we go. Nikki, amazing, beautiful woman. She comes from Michigan, as she stated. So amazing. That's cold up there. I was born in Michigan. All right. You got some power behind you to stay in Michigan. But your story here is about overcoming and the incredible things that happened all the way back to high school. Nikki married her high school sweetheart, and it was an unhealthy marriage. She was cheated on 8 times, not once, not twice. Made it 2 years with 3 babies and was divorced. The divorce was messy, full of anger and unforgiveness, but it took time, and Nikki was able to find that forgiveness that she needed to heal. She got to a place of realizing that she couldn't hold on to it anymore, and that was the beginning of her healing. And now Nikki's remarried to an incredible husband. She's seen her relationship with her ex be transformed, and now their families do life together. I mean, I get goosebumps just telling this amazing story, and they do it with honor. So Nikki, you are an amazing overcomer. Thank you for joining us. We come over to Steve and Michelle Breakstone, beautiful couple right there, joining us from Sarasota, Florida. And Steve did not have it easy growing up, coming from an alcoholic home. He's a former police officer who married young. And the things that you guys see on the job, that's hard stuff. So many officers, their marriages end in divorce. They have troubled marriages. And you went through 2 divorces and you came to a place where you knew you needed help. So he became teachable. And the thing I love about Steve is he gave up control and gave it to God. And then that's when things started to change. Now, Michelle married young. There was abuse. She also went through 2 divorces. She had children, and she got to a place where she was asking, why do I keep making the same choices? Why do I keep making these choices? So there was self-reflection, and there was beginning of change. Now, Steve and Michelle are married, not just married, happily married, and they have a mixed family. And again, they've seen God redeem. And the theme of redemption is amazing in their marriage. Love has been redeemed. And now they're in a marriage where they believe it's their job to build up each other. And they remain.
We'll get her back.
We remain. We just remain.
You remain. That's what matters.
Debbie Ward.
That's what
And they're
matters.
right there where it says marriage restoration coach.
You're freezing on us again, Larissa.
She'll come back.
Yeah. There you are.
All right, I'm back again. I'm back with Tony and Debbie, married for 20 years, and they've gone through a lot of stuff. 2 boys, proud parents of 2 boys. They've been divorced and then remarried each other and then went back on the brink of divorce a second time. A lot has gone on there. They got to the point right before the second divorce that they realized what they were doing wasn't working. They sought out professionals and kept searching and searching and searching until they found who could help them. They did not give up. That was an amazing journey. They have a heart to help others going through the same thing. They're certified coaches. That's what they do. They've seen incredible restoration with their families, their kids, and you guys, your vulnerability and your humility totally impressed me. So thank you to our panelists. They've been equipped to speak on this topic. Their hearts are amazing. That's why they're here today. So thank you, all of the panelists. Thank you for your vulnerability, your courage to share painful parts of your journey. And it's not easy, but it's needed. So to our listeners, if you have a question, type them in the comments. We will get to that towards the end. We'll do the best we can. And to our panel speakers, remember, there's no pressure to answer every question. Just respond to wherever you feel led to have an answer. So our first question, I'd like to talk about trust. Can trust ever be fully restored?
We can jump on that.
Yeah.
So it's funny because Michelle's like, we had a really bad week this week. I don't know, I feel bumpy about getting on here. And, for me, I realize that the enemy, anytime you're getting ready to do something amazing, the enemy's coming. He's coming through the door, through the windows, however it's going to be, he's going to attack. And the topic of trust. So the good thing is, if you're walking the right way with the Lord, the person that's coming into your life should definitely have the same clean slate that God gives them. So, you should start out with trust being here. But in reality in life, and I'm going to take the hit for this one, you have to realize that your mate or the person that you're with, even though God heals and he redeems, it's like a vase that was cracked and put back together. You have to be delicate with it at times, and you have to be aware of what cracked that vase, what pressure it was that cracked that vase. And so from a trust standpoint, yes, I really believe you can have amazing trust in a relationship, but it's also a fragile, as a beautiful orchid or a butterfly or something that you have to be cautious with, and you need to be tender with that. And I'm going to call myself out. I made a mistake that, to me, in my eyes, when I thought about it, was like, it's no big deal, just this. And I didn't look from inside her vision of, oh my gosh, even though it's not the same thing, this is an area that was troublesome to her in her previous marriage. Guard yourself, guard your home. And God made me the king of this castle, but he also instilled responsibility in me. Hey, you need to watch when the enemy's creeping up. He's trying to come over the hedgerow. You have to put a barrier further than you normally probably would in life. And people can go, oh, that's unfair, it's this or that. That's not the case. If I love her that much, I'm going to be extra sensitive to that and allow her healing to continue. If you have a person with scar tissue, that spot's always going to be sensitive. If you have a burn victim, they're always going to be sensitive there. Even though you want to hug them, you've got to allow them to heal fully and love them with your eyes or whatever, and that's just a metaphor. But I believe trust really can be there, but it's a fragile thing that must be guarded and honored.
Absolutely. And like Steve said, it just brings you back to all of that hurt from the past. And I was also to blame for the first marriage breakup. It was another man that was so enticing and promised me the world. And so the whole infidelity thing was there. But then what happened with that marriage was a lot of cheating and a lot of online stuff and all these women. And so the pain of that in the small thing that happened this week, it just came flooding back. And I went back to my old ways of just retracting and trying to protect myself. And I didn't want to, I turned my heart away, and I knew I wasn't doing the right thing, when I really reflected on it and I prayed to God, and so, yeah, it's life is a beautiful journey, but it can be messy in those moments. But it's how we redeem and how we respond in that moment. This man loves me with everything that he has, and I love him too.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that God's in the center of this marriage, and the enemy's trying to attack with everything that it can, because anything that God has ordained or anointed, it's going to come at you full force. So I know that we can get through this. Absolutely.
Wow. First of all, you guys, how powerful is that the first thing you come on and say is not, yeah, we have a happy marriage, everything's great. No, you come on and say, man, we had some bumps, and should we even come on? Because that's real life. And that just that vulnerability shows me why you guys have a great marriage, because you're real. You're like, shoot, it's not perfect. We have to fight for it. We have to guard what is valuable. Nobody's going to put their cash on the front lawn. No, they're going to put it in a safe, and how much more valuable and priceless is our marriage and the trust in marriage. So you guys, amazing points and example. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to speak to the trust issue?
Sure. As someone who was unfaithful for the better part of 20 years in our first marriage, I had a lot of I broke trust a lot, and so then after remarrying each other a year and a half later, broke that trust again. So for me to regain trust was impossible, you might say. But what we figured out and what we had to learn, or what I had to learn, was that trust is built through proven behavior over time. Saying I'm sorry doesn't count anymore. That's just, forget it. That doesn't work. So that's what we figured out, and what I had to figure out too, is that the proven behavior over time and the actions that I took to show Debbie that I was trustworthy, which definitely didn't happen overnight. That took a lot of time and a lot of effort. There was a lot of frustrations when I would not see that trust come, when I knew I had put my heart and every effort into it. But I had to just keep on keeping on, knowing that, you know what, there's no plan B here. This is my life, and this is what I'm going to do no matter what it takes. And so that proven behavior over time, combined with, a lot of other things, but specifically proving that I was trustworthy, because I had lost it. It's real easy to lose it, but it's not very easy to gain it back. So, have you anything to add to that?
And, just being willing to do like internal work, as the betrayer, if there's infidelity involved. What we find, like with most the couples that we work with too, which are mostly infidelity, a lot of it is if the person that cheated is willing to really own their stuff and really work, we find that trust can be restored. But it really is like, in the beginning, it's minute to minute, and then it's day to day, and then it's week to week. And, as they are consistent, it's like trust does come back, but it's not an overnight process. And I think some people just give up too soon.
Piggyback on something you said that's really important, and I think it'll be the key to what we talk about all night, is right now our church is having a little series called Inside Out, and everything that you do in a relationship and in your walk with God is inside out. It's starting on the inside and working your way out. And for me, and you talked about my mom's alcoholism, and she never said I love you. I had to learn to accept God's love inside and really genuinely accept it before I could ever give it to someone else. I can't pour out what I don't have. I had to learn to accept God's forgiveness inside. And for me, which was really hard to do, because you're always with the finger at yourself. Well, you did this, and you did that, and and that's what the enemy wants to do. But inside out, and then if you really work at that, like you said, from the inside out, that's the only way you can really make it have a firm foundation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I agree with you, Steve, on that. And that's a big thing that comes along with the trust, was Debbie seeing me actually do the work on me rather than trying to fix our marriage.
Yeah.
And then all truth and honesty, being completely honest and being completely truthful.
Yeah. With total
not minimizing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
That is amazing, and that is huge. And again, how true is it that it's not lip service, that it's repentance by the action?
True repentance.
True repentance. And that's, repentance is not saying I'm sorry. Repentance is turning the other way. the opposite direction. And that's has to be seen. At least in our marriage, it had been broken so many times that it was, there was no other way. You can't go around it. You got to go through it.
Yeah.
So what changed? Why didn't you just give up? I mean, you went through so many things. What kept you in it? It's a lot of work.
I think a lot of it is that we saw that the grass really isn't greener on the other side, at least for us. We had 2 boys involved too. We had 2 children that were big motivators.
We did give up.
Well, yeah, I guess we did. We got
But
divorced.
then I don't know, when we were divorced, it's like, we actually talked more when we were divorced than we did when we were married. And it was
Yeah,
it was really interesting.
our sons called us crazy.
But we never dealt with the main issues, and that was the deal. I guess we got back together because we saw a little bit of hope when we started talking, but we never really dealt with the core issues, and that's why it happened again. And that's when all the house came crumbling down.
And the core,
But I knew, I never gave up hope because I knew who he really was as a person deep down. I knew that like something had like taken control, like, and it wasn't God at that time. So I guess I knew like in my heart that he really was a good man. He was just making really bad choices. So
and
that's what
that
kept me
realization
going.
came to me in the second round that almost ended in divorce. That's when my world came crashing down. And I realized that I'd been pointing the fingers at everybody else for what I had been doing. And in reality, I needed to deal with me and fix myself. And so, you get to a point of where you're looking in the mirror and you hate the person you see. It's like, okay, I'm ready to change regardless. And I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose my boys. And I want to get myself back. And so that was when the complete repentant stage started, and the work started to owning my own crap and dealing with it and actually doing the work to fix who I was inside as number one, as a Christian accountable to God, but number 2, as a husband and a wife, a husband and a father accountable to my family, knowing that they deserved much better than what I had been giving them all these years. So it was just worth fighting for.
You guys, as you're telling your story, I keep seeing all of the Bible stories coming together in the struggles you've gone through. It's worth it. It's worth the sacrifice. I had to look at who I really was. I mean, everything really brings the message of the gospel to light. It's as if you were living it out in your marriage.
Well,
It's
God
really
gets all the glory. If
Yeah.
it wasn't
We didn't do it
for
alone.
Christ and God in our life, then we wouldn't be here tonight. I can tell you that. It's by his redemption.
For sure.
True. And Debbie, the thing that you said, even at the worst spot, you still saw that there's something worth holding on to. There's some hope that this man is worth it. And you guys have come back from the depths to now helping other couples. And amazing story. Thank you. Thank you for that vulnerability.
Sure.
Which goes to show that you can trust again after going through divorce. but it's going to take some work. It's going to take some hard work, but it's going to be worth it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And of course, we're a little bit of an exception to the rule because we are the same couple that we started out 33 years ago. But the trust was broken from me all the years before, not someone else. So it's not like we're having to learn to trust someone that we don't know or are in a new relationship with. So I appreciate what Steve said about the way that they're looking back on the past relationships and probably comparing, okay, well, why can I trust a third person coming in? What's to make me think that they're trustworthy? The first two weren't. And in reality, the first two for her weren't either, because I was the first and the second one.
All right. We have another question. Can I be all the things I need to be and get rid of all the things I need to be in a marriage? I know my wrongs. How do you get to a place where you see yourself as God sees you, as forgiven? And can you really come into a clean slate into the next marriage with the challenges that you have inside yourself?
That hits on what I spoke about earlier to me about being able to accept God's forgiveness on the inside. And I'll try to tell a really quick story. I have a guy that was very instrumental in me getting saved, and he's kind of like been God's messenger in my life. He'll bring me messages from God, just powerful stuff. But one time when I was going through some struggle, he came to me and he said, Steve, I had a vision I need to tell you. And he goes, in this vision, there was a black and yellow snake wrapped around your neck and it was pulling you backwards. And he goes, I don't know what that means. And I go, I do. I grew up in Pittsburgh. Everything's black and yellow. God knew it would be something that would represent to me. And my past was pulling me back, pulling me back, pulling me back. And he said, Jesus showed up and went like this and the snake was gone. And then behind me was a big steel cutout sign, big plate steel sign. And it said forgiven, but it was all rusty. And he said that Jesus pointed at the sign and said, Steve, you see your forgiveness like this? And Jesus touched it and it turned to brilliant, brilliant, shiny gold. And he goes, this is how your forgiveness looks to me. And so there have been transitions and things, but I really mean that for you to be able to work with another person, you've got to accept that from God. And then you have to accept it also as a gift of grace and mercy. Don't accept it lightly, but go, wow, the Father really, really, has given me another chance, has given me another opportunity to marry the same person again, if you will, or whatever it is that's in God's hands. But you've got to have that forgiveness inside to know that you are enough, that you can be enough. And it's a funny thing being enough, because when I was a police lieutenant and I played sports on a very high level, I used to be enough in my own head. And then I came to the realization of having to surrender, which was a totally bizarre thing. I was in the military and police. Surrender is like a good word for me. But God said, I need you to surrender. I need you. And it was an over and over again topic. And when you finally surrender, once you surrender to God, then I can surrender to her. I can surrender to my home. As they were talking, he made a choice. I want to surrender from my old life and surrender myself back to my family. And that's the only way you can be enough. You have to surrender to God first. And then obviously being equally yoked and having a mate, like Debbie and Tony do, to have a mate that sees it in you before you see it in yourself and believes that it's there. It's instrumental. It's instrumental.
So I will speak to that too. Thank you, Steve. So when I got married the first time, I was 18 and I did not have Jesus in my life. There was no, I mean, he was there, but there was no acknowledging. And so he was not in my first marriage at all. And so to go through all of that, just so much stuff without Jesus, was just crazy to me. But then I was only a few months out of, or in the process of a divorce when I met my now husband. And I had kids that my littles were 1, 2, and 3 when I was going through my divorce. And so my husband now, Ryan, walked into our lives at a time. Again, though, Jesus was not in our marriage. He wasn't in our relationship. And so I was carrying so many things from my first marriage, and a lot of blame, even though I was to blame for some of the things. And we were both so incredibly young. I had no idea what we were doing. And so when I got married the second time, I still carried a bunch of those unhealthy patterns and ways, and expected things out of my husband that were not realistic. And so it wasn't for, so we've been married now almost 13 years, but we didn't get Jesus into our lives until 8 years ago. So the first 5 years of my second marriage were really hard, because we just kept, we were just still so incredibly selfish. And that was I truly believe that was our biggest issue, is that we didn't want to surrender anything. We both wanted control of everything, and we wanted to blame each other for things. And so once Jesus came in and completely did an overhaul, we didn't start thriving until 5 years ago. So knowing that he could not be what I needed him to be. Only Jesus can do that. He is not my savior. He is not, he can't do that. My first husband couldn't do it, and it's not their role to do that. But through Jesus, we're thriving now.
Wow, Nikki, that's amazing. So it sounds like you had this new marriage, you brought in all the baggage, all the trash, all the stinky stuff still there, and you're like, it's not working.
No. And I would have said, even I'm a really good actress. So I can put on a really good show, and I can tell people what they want to hear. But even deep down, even some of my closest friends would never have known how it was I was close to divorce the second time, because there was just so many things that were not being dealt with inside. Like Steve was saying, I didn't know who I was. I was still only 23 years old, 24 years old. And so to be in a second marriage at that age, I had no idea what I was doing until Jesus showed me.
That's amazing. Nikki, I love what you said about our spouse is not the person that's going to fulfill all of our desires. That only comes from our Creator. And that's a huge, huge point. And gosh, that's a lot of pressure to put on your spouse too. Yeah, amazing. Nikki, thank you. Thank you so much. You are a wise, incredible woman that has gone through so much, and so much gold there. And again, you said nobody would know because I was so good at hiding it. And I think that's so important to remember. There's friends that we have around us that are struggling, but they're hiding it so well. Just to really love with the love of Christ on the people around us as well. Awesome, Nikki. Thank you. All right. So we're not God, but we want to be better. We want to be better. So in dealing with the feelings of always wanting to be better, but also blaming the other person, taking responsibility can be hard. We know we need to take responsibility, but is there a way to make that easier, or to come to terms with taking responsibility better to get to that place, but without being a fixer and trying to fix everything, because that's God's role. How do we manage that?
That was super tough for me because being in the military and being police, my whole life was, all right, you got 4 minutes to go fix these people's life. You know, go fix this, go fix that, go fix this, but you know, and it's just my natural nature. And then when I realized I couldn't fix myself,
Mm.
was a pretty rude awakening. And you know, like Tony said, you know, you just come to that realization, look, I got to go somewhere other than me to get this problem solved. And then you start to do that. But then once you come to that realization, if you're honest with yourself and God about it, then you realize now externally, and again inside out, it's not my job to fix her either. She's not even broken. First of all, she's not broken. She's just exactly like God made her. And he made her slower than me getting ready to do things, more compassionate with people, much more patient. And I got to tell you one funny story. I love this so much. Sorry. She learned to do this thing because I'll get yakking, and she'll rub my arm. And that's like, hey, Steve. But what I love about it, it's a correction, but it's so beautiful. It's so gentle and loving. And so I was on a Zoom call one time, and this guy, I was trying to get in to speak. She wasn't even near me, and I could feel her go, hey, let him talk. And so that's allowing God. That's being, you know, in a place where she's allowing God to fix me. And that's really cool. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
So for me and in my marriage now, and if had I known it before, I think one of the things that we say now is that you don't get to tell me how I feel. And so it's really hard. In my previous marriage, like I felt wronged all the time. I mean, I felt wronged all the time, and he would try to tell me that I was the wrong one, and he would try to justify his behaviors through whatever means necessary, and it wasn't fair to me because that was how I was feeling. If I was hurt, like he didn't get to tell me that his behavior doesn't hurt me. And so now that's one of the things that my husband and I do really well is that, like, and we've talked about it, you know, clearly it's a process, but if I'm angry with you, like, you don't get to tell me that I'm not angry with you. We can talk about it, or you don't get to say that didn't hurt my feelings. What you just sarcastically said to me didn't hurt my feelings, because it did hurt my feelings. You can try to explain it or tell me why, you know, you can perspectivize it or whatever, but you don't get to tell me how I feel. And so that's one of the things that I've really learned in my now marriage is to allow each other to sit in what we're feeling and to allow us to feel it.
Awesome. Great point. Allowing each other the space to feel what you feel without judgment or fixing. It sounds like that is a work in progress. I know I try that in my own marriage, and whew.
Yeah. One of the things that we have learned is that most conflict and things come from 5 different areas, which is unmet or unrealistic expectations that we place on our spouses, an emotional trigger of our own that they're not even maybe aware of, broken promises, assumptions that are there, and then misinterpretations. So really, what we do is any conflict, there's usually one of those reasons why we're having that conflict. And so
it's usually not about that actual conflict.
Yeah. So it's a lot about communication and communicating these things to your spouse so that you can understand them and they can understand you.
Very, very good. Communication. I do have more questions, but how do you get to that point in communication? You know, people say men are from Mars, women are from Venus. They speak a different language. How do you get to that point where you can hear what your spouse is saying and you can receive what they're saying?
One of the things is you kind of have to put your pride aside to some degree, and you have to listen to what they're really saying, because even though it might hurt, if, like she was saying, Nikki was saying, that hurt my feelings, but you know, it needs to be talked about as to why it hurt your feelings. And then, you know, you have that communication back and forth.
A lot of the communication too is really about listening and intentionally listening, and not, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of techniques for couples talking to each other to where they, you know, repeat back what they thought the other one said until
It's totally different.
until they actually get it right and they fully understand, okay, yes, that's what I said, after 6 different attempts at trying to hear it right. For lack of a better way of putting it. But that's a big part of it, is intentionally listening to understand what they actually said, rather than, in my instance, I would always, the minute something came up, I would start formulating my answer before she ever was 3 words in. And that's not listening. So it's very, very intentional, and you have to make an effort at it, and it doesn't come naturally or easy.
Right. But trying not to be offended when your spouse is trying to explain to you why they feel like they do, or, you know, it's learning to, like, take off the offense and really listen so that you can get past the issue of whatever it is.
Wow.
Which is really hard to do. It's hard to hear and it's hard to say if it's really hard, you know, deep stuff. Like in our situation, listening, I mean, talking about infidelity was really difficult. And so there were a lot of assumptions that had to be put aside, and a lot of offendedness being put aside, you know, to get down to the root of it, because really infidelity is a symptom of another deeper issue. So you got to get down to those issues, which is hard.
Yeah. And that takes talking.
Wow.
It
And
takes talking and communicating and listening.
And what I've learned about communication, you know, for me, my natural inclination is to be the softer person, and that nonverbal communication is important. Like, you know, maybe you're talking too much. I'm saying that with my body language, but I'm doing it in a kind way. And I started studying and learning a lot about that through just free YouTube videos and delving into, like, XO Marriage and Marriage Today, and amazing coaches that we've had the privilege of hearing from. Oh, did we lose our host? Oh no. I'll keep going. And spiritual mothers and fathers in our church, and just seeing how they are with their spouse, how loving they are with their spouse. That speaks so much to how you can learn to communicate when your personalities are completely different.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
great.
That's super great, because my husband and I were not raised with godly examples or even good marriage examples. So we had no idea I was coming out of an unhealthy marriage. And so what I was bringing into it was all of the stuff before. And so we didn't have any relationship people that we could look up to. And so it's really important for us now to be that example for our kids. I mean, I have 3 teenagers right now. And so I want them to be able to see us fighting because it's natural and it's normal, but the way that we do it has to be in a beneficial way. Not fighting is not normal. I mean, typically, sure, there are some, but having, I think, Steve, you guys are so right. Like you have to have an example to lean on and to look at. So it's super important.
Yeah, fights are going to happen, but there's ways to do it that can be very productive and healthy that give your children a good example of how to resolve conflict, and that it's not the end of the world, over most stuff. So yeah, agreed on for both of y'all. We lost you there, Larissa.
I'm back.
You missed golden nuggets.
Technology. Hey, but it's not about me. It's about you guys. So as long as you're there, it's good. It's good. All right, so let's go to boundaries. What role do boundaries play in a marriage or in a divorce? Boundaries.
I think they're huge. Like for me, that's probably one of the key things. And it's been in the past one of my weakest points. I invite the whole world into my center ring. And I'm like, oh, I'll help this person, I'll do this for that person. And again, from the inside out, it's God, your home and your family, and you work your way out. And we actually sat with, I call her our daughter, Ava, she's 13, and we had her draw rings on a board. Who's way on the inside? Who's on the net? And, every time you teach, you learn if you're, being a good teacher. And I watch and in my mind, I was like, that person's past the boundary where they belong. And if I ever get jammed up or ever have a problem, I can almost guarantee it's a boundary issue. And you have to, I think now I realize much more than I've ever did in life that, store up your treasure, and your treasure, is your relationship with God, it's your relationship with your spouse, your home. And then other things really don't deserve very small amounts of your time, if any at all. And she's really good about red flags. Like, I love the whole world, I really do. And she'll baby, I got a bad vibe about this guy or this woman, and I'm like, they're fine, da, da, da. Sure enough, a month down the road, I realized I let them pass the boundary, and now you got to push them out, and it's like trying to kick a bull out, and you got your hands full. The boundaries are huge, huge, even inside the home. And I think, in a previous marriage, I can say that one of the weakest points was, and my wife and I accept responsibility for everything too, but as soon as we had kids, they were more inside of her world than I was. And it started to really affect me. And coming from a home where my mom never said, I love you, like I was a big baby, like I really need affection, probably still do. But I love that one-on-one attention. And when you have your home and your children, that spouse is still before those kids, and that boundary's got to be honored, or your kids will never learn it for their relationships later. Like Nikki said, I didn't have an example either, and then you're running uphill in a snowstorm with, so boundaries are big.
I totally agree with you, Steve, and think that like for me, for instance, I didn't really have any boundaries that I had set in place, but when I started formulating the boundaries that should have been in place, what had happened was I'm spiritually, early on, I was raised as a Christian. My parents were both Christians and active in the church. I was in a Christian rock band when I met Debbie, and was very strong. And what happened is the boundaries that were basically said in our wedding vows what happened to me was that I allowed myself to get too close to those boundaries and actually set up different boundaries saying, well, this is not really that bad. And this is not really that bad. And then the next thing you know, I'm so far past this boundary that was over there that I'm too far gone to get back. So I think you're right. It's imperative that your boundaries need to be set up so that you know what they are, and you know when you see that red flag coming. Otherwise, you're going to be past them before you know it. And like you say about, the person that you're trying to kick out of the ring, it's like kicking the bull out. You're too far gone. So yes, boundaries are huge in my opinion too. And Debbie will agree with me.
Completely.
Very, it makes sense. It makes sense. And, going back to God, God sets boundaries for us for our own good and blessing. So,
Well, and yeah, and if you're having trouble coming up with boundaries, all you got to do is go to the Bible. They're there.
there we go. Black and white already written down for us.
David needs to stay off the roof. King David needs to stay off the roof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True. He should have been in the battle, not hanging back at home. All right. Now, how do you find friends, community, and help that won't be vengeful for you when that's what you're feeling, but it's not what you need? If you're going through a tough time, you don't want your friends to be like, yeah, your spouse is a jerk. Where do you get the support systems? Where are the support systems for people going through a tough time?
Well, we just had this talk and I mentioned like one of the most offensive things to me, and when you're like and I don't mean to pick on police officers, but you get really close and you'll hear guys yapping about their wife or whatever. And I'm like, dude, for real? Like that's inside your castle and you're tearing it down from the inside out. We call them an onboard saboteur. And you have to guard where you go for counsel, and where you seek advice from. And we talk about it all the time, never seek advice from somebody who doesn't have something in life that you want. So if they're not walking the walk that you want, I don't need their advice, or I'm not interested in it. And I think it was Charles Stanley. He's the pastor up in Georgia. He said one time people would come to him, oh, blah, 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 blah. And you go, thank you for that piece of information. And that was it. And you just let it pass by. But you've got to really, really seek it wise. And one of my struggles right now, and I told her, I play sports and I interact with a lot of people, but I don't have a guy who I say is my like go-to guy. And I'm not going to just surrender that anymore to just whoever pops up like a mushroom out of the ground. I'm very selective about that. And if it takes time, it takes time. But it's an important thing that you have it, but it needs to be a very carefully selected. And that's even true about church. We all, I think, here are all believers and we love church and stuff, but I see churches draw people in and they end up separating their families. They got, 4 nights of worship practice and this thing and that thing. And before you know, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, home is the anchor, and you should be taking God out into the world, not closing yourself up in a building. And don't take me wrong, I love my church family, but even in that environment, you have to be careful. Your first source comes from Him, and you work your way from there. But it's tough. It's a challenge. For sure.
You took the words right out of our mouths, basically, on that. As far as finding people that you can confide in, and in our situation especially, we really and advise our couples that we coach that one of the first things we basically tell them is that from the day you start with us, we don't want you talking about this with any of your friends or your family from this point until we're done with you, because you don't know what kind of advice you're going to get. If they are not, like you said, Steve, if they haven't had a successful marriage or are in a divorce or in situations that are not what you want, then why are you getting advice from them in the first place? And families are always going to be biased. So you're not going to get probably the honest truth. You're going to get biased opinions. Pretty much most of it, unless they're a professional, would be an opinion. But like you said, having a guy in your life, like an accountability guy. I've got a guy that I wish I had gone to. He was there. I just never went to him. And you know, he's a guy that I can confide in, and he's not taking sides for me or for Debbie. He's looking out for our marriage. He would, you know, he would be someone that I could trust. And so I do think it's important that you have a community of people, but you got to be very, very careful, like you said, about where you confide in and get advice from or get counsel from.
Yeah. Especially in marriages, like they need to be like healed, on the healed side. If you're looking for, like for us, for instance, when we first started trying to get help, we had a lot of friends that had gone through it, but they were divorced. And not that that's a bad thing. It's just that we wanted to stay married. And it was really hard to find, like, okay, I know you can get divorced, but we want to stay married. How do you stay married and deal with infidelity? And it was really difficult to find that, but we did find help eventually.
I mean, and it wasn't someone that we knew. It was an outside professional coach, but that's what we were looking for. It's what you want. You see the success like someone else has.
Find somebody that has what you want.
Right.
And then they're probably pretty safe. Yeah, I was going to say something about the family and I forgot, but I'll think of it in a minute. Nikki, you might have something to add.
I do. So because I was so young in my divorce situation, I sought out all the wrong people. So if you want to find the wrong people, you will definitely find them. Anybody who will, you know, bash and everything. So I definitely found the wrong people. And they loved me and I loved them, and they thought that they were being supportive. Truly, like they thought that that's what I needed to go through it. And so it was not clearly healthy. But then when my ex and I started to then work together, we also then had people questioning, like you, like why would you try to get along with him? Why would you do all of these things? And so to say that, I totally understand that, like, you want to go to the people that have it for the advice, but you can also build that, because we didn't know anybody who was getting along and doing life together. And so many people questioned us, especially my family. Like, you've been so wronged and you've been so hurt. Why would you ever want to work with him? Well, because we have 3 young babies. And so knowing I really had to, there was nobody for me at that point that I could truly go to for advice or to lean on. And so it was super important. And in my now marriage, I know that there are very select few people that I will talk to about anything marriage related.
Nikki, you hit something huge that it just touched me a little bit. When I went through my divorce with my 3 kids' mom, it was brutal divorce. I was a police lieutenant. It was on the news. It was awful. Everything that, and you know, it's just like the news today. None of it was true, but it didn't matter. They were having a good time at my expense, and so even after all that, I kept going to my ex-wife and saying, look, we've got 3 children to raise. We may do it in separate homes. and I met so much resistance, and it's, you know, people heal at different levels or choose not to at all. That's up to them. But I tell people all the time, if you can have some sort of common ground, you don't have to be buddies again, but if you can have some common ground so that the children have a smoother environment to grow and learn from, it's so much more beneficial. It does not need to be hostile.
Well,
And
and
I
it
applaud,
took us
I
years.
applaud you for that. It's
Yeah.
okay. I applaud you.
Like people will see us now because we do. I mean, that is one of the things that I cherish, is that like we do birthdays for the kids together, we do holidays together, but that took years. And so the people right now that are watching, they're like, oh, that's so amazing, I want that. And I'm like, yes, true story. But you like, it's such a process,
What we tell some of our clients is what you have to remember when you're in coaching or counseling or whatever, you're learning skills that your family and friends aren't necessarily learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you to go and tell them these deep things, they're not learning how to get past that stuff like you are. And so that's the difference too.
Mm-hmm.
So
one thing that I've learned over the years is exactly what we're talking about, like who are you letting into your inner circle? But the one person that I will go to first all the time is Jesus. And I'll be like, okay, Jesus, just have a conversation with him and say, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is what happened today. Who can I share this with? Like even ask him, who should I share this with? And he'll tell you whether you should pray about it more or share it with your spouse or your ex or a close friend. He's always there to guide every step of the way.
Absolutely. Can't agree more.
And the importance too is a sensitivity for your spouse of, we function at a different speed. I do things bang, 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 bang. Even when I eat like that, it's just crazy. It's just how, and so coming into a relationship with her and seeing her process, and I can feel her and I feel her processing. You can't rush that process. You have to allow God and the way that he built her to allow her to get through. We went through a challenge and I knew for once in my life, just keep your mouth shut. Love her from a distance, smile, just be patient and let her heal and process. And we have to allow, and society doesn't do that anymore. Everything's microwave, fix it now, do it now, and that's not how you create permanent healing. That's, you guys in your marriage, I'm sure, you didn't wake up and go, hey, it's all going to be roses. And, it was a process, and feeling the other spouse and allowing them to do that. It's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Very, very good. Definitely time and a process. I like how you brought that out. None of this is going to happen overnight, even if you want it to. It's, and even Song of Solomon talks about the weeds, and the little foxes. There's always going to be weeds to pull. And Michelle, yeah, Jesus, right there. Go to him first. He wants that relationship. The heart of David, who did he have to talk to? It was God. It was going to God. Yeah. All right. Speaking of God, why me, God? Why did this happen to our marriage, God? Why? Why did it happen to me? Why did you allow this? It's not, how did you deal with the why question if you did? Why me? Why us? God, why?
Well, I can definitely say that I cried out to him almost daily, saying, why? And I can't say that I still don't ask that question because it was brutal, like for many years. But when I got coaching around it, it was because God is God and God didn't cause these things to happen. They were choices made by him and us as in our marriage. And God was always, he gives us free will. And so really it's about personal responsibility. God is always good. God is always there. And he was always there to pick us up. And when we repented, but God is still God. And he's not going to step in and take over his will because he gave him free will. And so that's the way I understand that. But I still can't say that I don't say why. Why did it have to be like that? Because I would have chosen definitely not for it to have been that way. But he did make all things good. And he also promises that when you give it over to him, which he's proven to be good once again, as always.
And I'm a contrast. I actually never ask God why. My response to God, and I lost a 17-year-old son. It's coming up on 6 years ago. And that was the hardest journey of my life. And I learned, and I say it in Spanish because I speak, and I don't know why, it's just so I love to say it. It's y entonces, and now what? Now what? But what's the next step, God? Where do we go from here? I don't, in the middle of the storm, I'll be like, all right, God, it's a storm, and now what? Where do we go from here? But the one thing that I realized it's really important, and people miss this point, and the Bible talks about it all the time, generational blessings and generational curses. And, I know that through decisions that my mother didn't make, that her father made, I found out she was molested by her father, and you can go on and on and on. And then you wonder why I don't have good relationship skills, and I don't approach it from a victim standpoint, but God, what can we do to break this chain? How can I break this chain with you so that my children don't suffer those same maladies that I came up with? And he's a God of new renewing. He's a God of new chances. He's a God. I love in Isaiah when they talk about you're going to rebuild the city. You're going to rebuild. You're going to make new. And I'm getting goosebumps. Oh, but I love the book of Isaiah because it's that. And so, if you can get rid of the why and go, God, where do we go from here? I need you. I'm willing to follow, God. Just tell me what you want me to do next. I'm in. You can break that chain. And I want my children, her daughter, our whole big thing about our home, we call it kingdom builders. It's our business and everything we want to build, help people build a kingdom of their own under God's kingdom. But the key that I want to leave those children with is you don't have to be a victim of whatever happened in the family before, in your life before, in society before. You are not a victim. You're not. And there's a way to break that.
So for me, I think my biggest why God was always when I would see my ex-husband with his now wife, but she was the last one that he cheated on me with. So I didn't understand, and mind you, I didn't really have Jesus in my life, but it was still, he was, there, but I didn't understand, like, why do they get the life that I wanted? Why do they get to play house with my kids? Because we always went 50-50. So, he's got them half the time and I've got them half the time. And so when my daughter was a year old, she was going to live, with her stepmom or whoever at the time. And it hurt. Like, it was so incredibly hard. And she wanted in from the get-go. She wanted, parent-teacher conferences. And I'm like, what on earth? Like, why am I going through this? And again, it was years of that questioning. And it wasn't until my I was really angry with her and him for, for a really long time. And my oldest was 9 and he started having seizures. He was diagnosed with epilepsy, and it was in the ER that she held tightly to me and told me everything was going to be okay. That finally I was like, okay, and I stopped questioning, because I knew that she brought something different. I mean, clearly I would never have asked for any of this. But she was bringing a beautiful aspect to my kids' life, and she loves them, and she loved them from the get-go. So it wasn't until that moment in the ER that she's holding on to me, because I'm not good in emergency situations, and she is, that she was able to hold me and make sure that I was okay. So
Beauty from ashes.
exactly.
Wow, that's you guys are absolute victors, warriors, overcomers, obviously, and thank you all for showing us that we don't have to lay down on the battlefield, that we have the power in God to rise up and take the territory he has for us and be redeemed. Not just salvation, but marriage, hearts, relationships. Amazing. Whew. I'm gonna check the chat box. I think we have at least one question in the chat. If any listeners have some questions, I'm gonna go through that. And I have a question for Debbie. The question is, after you decided to forgive Tony, how did you handle the family members that wrote him off, who knew about his cheating and were not open to forgiving him like you were, because they saw the pain you went through?
Well, to be really honest, we did not involve our family in a lot of it. Now, they knew when we got divorced, but my family absolutely adores Tony. And it was actually really difficult because they were actually mad at me, but I did not tell that when we got divorced. In fact, one of my brothers, he was kidding, I think, but he said, "We're really going to miss you, Debbie," when we got divorced, meaning they were going to take him. But I never went to my family when we got divorced and told them what Tony had done, because I knew, for one thing, I did not want their advice. I was just trying to deal with all of it myself. One of the things that I don't know how we did it, but we did not trash each other when we got divorced. And I think that helped us get back together, if you really want to know the truth. So they honestly didn't know why we got divorced. They just knew that we just said, it just didn't work. And we just never really went into a lot of detail. Now they know, because we just recently came out with our coaching business. And we've just now really, after how many, 25 years?
Yeah.
Well, we've been married
33 off and on, give or take.
Just in the last 5 years, we've slowly started telling people why we got divorced. We were completely honest with our kids.
In the beginning,
that was the first step we had to do first. That was extremely difficult to tell our kids, but it was also like a weight lifted off of me, because I didn't have to hide everything anymore. And then we started slowly telling our family. okay, this is what we're about to do. We're about to go public with our story. You need to know what really happened. And we've gotten mixed. Nobody's really said anything directly to me because they see us on the healed side already. So I don't know if that answers your question. But honestly, Tony, everybody loves Tony. That's what's so hard about it all, is that he really is a good guy. And yet
Our
just
youngest
made a
son
lot of
didn't,
bad choices.
our youngest son took the longest to forgive me, I guess.
Yeah.
He wouldn't speak to me for a long time,
Couple
but a couple months, yeah. But that was part
he
of
was
the,
confused
he was.
about the Christianity part of it,
Yeah.
which we all were. But so to answer your question, our family, I think now they're a little more confused because we hit it very well. One of you said you were master performers. There were people that were shocked that when we got divorced, like they never saw it coming. And so we hit it very well.
Well, I don't have any more questions in the chat. Are there any closing words that our panelists would like to share?
I just want to thank both Steve and Michelle and Nikki. I got a lot out of what you guys said.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I've been taking notes all night.
I know.
Me too.
Debbie's my secretary / note taker.
The one thing I'll tell some people, and I saw Tracy make a comment on there about, just sometimes really struggling and that it's a struggle. The thing that I'll tell you is that sometimes it's okay just to hang on to the lifeboat. Sometimes it's okay just to look for one bright flower tomorrow, for one moment, for one piece of God. And then the next day might be two. And it's okay. It's okay to hurt. It's okay. And again, I use the phrase in Spanish, siempre adelante, always forward. And so, Tracy or whoever, when you're going through a challenge, it's okay to hurt. It's okay to feel down. Just believe that the God who loves you has bright spots ahead for you. They're along the pathway.
We were told
Yeah.
something the other day that you need to just walk in the light that God gives you until he gives you more.
Mhm.
Yeah. And one of the things that I did not do the first marriage, but I did allow myself the second time when we got remarried and it happened again, I allowed myself to grieve, which some people don't take that time. I gave myself permission to just grieve what was lost. And he gave me the space to do that. Whereas the first 20 years,
I had no patience.
that wasn't a part of it. So if you are going through a hard time, I just really just give yourself permission to grieve the loss. And the loss is innocence. The loss is the trust. The loss is the way you thought life was going to turn out. But God is there and he is going to make beauty from ashes in time, So.
Sorry, Nikki, we didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I know, clearly raising teenagers with just my husband and I, but then having, a whole nother set of parents. We have issues that come up all the time. And so at one point, it was about a year ago, we were having a really hard issue. And God just spoke to me and was like, I didn't bring you guys this far to just leave you here. We're going to get through this. You just have to trust me that you're going to continue. Your story is going to continue to unfold. I did not bring you this far to just leave you here. So just know that I got plans for you. And it's not easy.
Elle had asked a question about fear. How are you not afraid that what happened to you before is going to happen again? And, Belle, it's kind of tough for me to answer because I don't operate in fear. I'm kind of weird. We'll get into that another time, but
Let me just, I know some people do need to leave, and I want to honor everybody with our time. So I'm just going to close out. Anybody is welcome to stay on. So I'm just going to close out. And again, thank you, speakers, for tonight.
I guess we're doing clock right now.
She's frozen again.
I don't think she's in Florida. She must be in Michigan. She keeps
No,
freezing.
she's in Florida,
I know.
right?
Oh,
There she is. You're back.
love that internet. All right. Thank you, speakers. You can stay on. I'm going to be on. I just want to thank you for your bravery and your courage and your vulnerability and being here. This was an amazing, amazing evening. And I just want to end with a quick prayer. And dear Lord in heaven, oh, my Father God, thank you for this evening. Thank you for these stories of overcoming and victory, God. You give us free will, but you are always there, right there, wanting to pick us up and wanting to give us redemption and healing, God. I pray blessings over Nikki and Steve and Michelle and Tony and Debbie. Lord, just pour out the blessings that they have. They've given us blessings. They're shining your light, God. I pray you grant them favor in the direction that they're going to help others. I pray for every person on this phone call. I believe every single person has been touched by divorce in one way or another, God. I pray that you bring healing and direction, Father. And finally, I thank Jen Horling for starting the Overcomers, to bring overcomers together, to help each of us lift one another up into your light, God. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your graciousness and your mercy and your redemption. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. If you need to go, thank you for being here. And if anybody would like to stay and chat and ask some more questions, you are more than welcome. And you can unmute if you want. Judith, hey.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your contribution. It was amazing, amazing sharing your stories. I loved hearing and learning from you. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend too.
Thank you.
You too.
You
Thank
too.
Thank you. And Steve, I apologize if I cut you off. I know you wanted to address, I believe it was Belle who had some questions about what do you do if you have trust, but there's some behaviors or red flags going on.
Yeah, she mentioned the word fear, and that's a big buzzword when I see it. But you know, it's easy to say fear and faith don't operate in the same place, but being human, we do feel fear, and it's what you do with that and how you overcome it. You know, when I was a police officer, you'd run through a door knowing that a guy had a gun, and you can't say that you're not afraid, but you do all the things that you can do. And Belle, the one thing that I'll tell you, if you can always wrap yourself around the verse where God says, you know, I know the plans that I have for you. I have plans to prosper you. Now, sometimes that prospering comes through pruning and honing and challenges, but as best as you can embrace those and walk through them, knowing that there's goodness on the other side of it.
Awesome. Belle, does that help? Do you want to unmute and ask anything? Okay. All right. That makes sense. I love that. Jeremiah 29:13. I know the plans I have for you. My favorite scripture. Definitely I go to
Poor Larissa, we got to get her some internet help.
Gonna nickname her Popsicle. She's always frozen. You're back.
I'm back. You'd think I was in Canada. I'm frozen all the time.
Yeah. She knows that internet.
Being a child of divorce, I had a lot of baggage, and I feel like there's always another level of healing that I received during our interviews and even tonight. Just a lot of hope and healing. So I just want to thank you guys again. Belle says she's not able to unmute. But she said, thank you for the verse. And it's good to have ways to refocus. So thank you, Belle. And I think we're good.
Thank you, everybody. It was
All right,
enjoyable.
Thank you.
It was a
Thanks for
Really
having
Thank you
us.
all.
appreciate it, guys.
Pleasure.
Good night.
Meeting you.
pleasure to meet you guys.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Thank you. Thank you
God
all.
bless you all.